Would you like to go with me down my dead-end street? Would you like to come with me to village ghetto land? See the people lock their doors, robbers laugh and steal, beggars watch and eat their meals from garbage cans. Broken glasses everywhere, it's a bloody scene. Killing plagues the citizens unless they own police. Children play with rustic cars, swords cover their hands. Politicians laugh and drink, drunk to all demands. Families buying dog food now, salvation roams the streets. Babies die before they're born, infected by the grief. Now some folks say that we should be glad for what we have. Tell me, would you be happy in village ghetto land? Tell me, would you be happy in village ghetto land?
Hello, friends. Welcome to a not-so-soothing stream. This is the protest song edition. As usual, I haven't memorized all the things I wanted to say, so I'm reading them off this computer. I'm not trying to be rude when I don't make eye contact. It's just to keep it moving, keep it accountable. For the beings of the future who may stumble upon this piece of media, it's June 21st, 2020. 2 days after Juneteenth, June 19th, the celebration of the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas, which had been the last bastion of chattel slavery at the time. This year, 2020, has held probably the most widespread recognition of this holiday as it comes on the heels of weeks of protest and strife, expressing the lack of progress towards racial justice in this country. Also, we remain, at least in America, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, emerging slowly from a months-long quarantine. There was something in the news about murder hornets a little while back, and today is Father's Day. This show is for you, Dad. This is a departure from the normal format of the shows that we've been doing. There's not going to be any Backstreet Boys. There will be no Enlightenment with Billy. There will be folk music, because as Thelonious Monk said, but we do have a theme tonight, as we have in the past few episodes. The theme for this show is justice, and half of what you donate will go towards the TGI Justice Project, which supports Black trans leadership. I think the word charity has become more confusing than it needs to be. There's an association with pity, shame, sometimes choice, this idea that I don't need your charity, that receiving it reinforces a position in some shitty social hierarchy, that people give charity because they want to, we want to, because we feel we can, because it makes us feel good. In Hebrew, the word that represents a similar idea is tzedakah. and it means justice. It's not an act of benevolence towards the poor. It's an obligation to maintain the reality that every single fucking person is entitled to healthy access to the resources of the world. So send in some money. It sounds like there's a helicopter going overhead. Sign of the times. Can let that pass, because you're probably booting up your Venmo right now. Yeah, send in money. It doesn't have to be to @BenJaffe, Burn Jerffe on Venmo, but if it is, 50% of it will go towards the TGI Justice Project. If not, send it wherever you want to. Just send a little bit. Little justice. Okay, so back to Troy and I, jamming out. You may know Troy from episode 5 of the Soothing Stream, in which he didn't send in a video of himself. Troy lives downstairs from me, so it made these recordings a lot easier in the COVID sense of things. So here's us playing another Stevie Wonder song. I'll talk about it after. Please enjoy. Okay. One, two, three.
They've been spending most of their lives living in a pastime paradise. They've been spending most of their lives living in a pastime paradise. They've been wasting most of their time glorifying days long gone behind. They've been wasting most of their days in remembrance of ignorance, oldest praise. Tell me who of them I'll come to be. How many of them are you and me? Dissipation, race relations, consolation, segregation, dispensation, isolation, exploitation, mutation, mutilation, miscreation, confirmation to the use of the world. They've been spending most of their lives living in a future paradise. They've been spending most of their lives living in a future paradise. They've been looking in their minds from the day when sorrow was gone from time. They keep telling of the day when the Savior of love will come to stay. Tell me who of them will come to be. How many of them are you and me? Proclamation, race relation, consolation, integration, verification, revelation, acclamation, world salvation, vibration, stimulation, confirmation to the peace of the world.
And we're back. Okay, despite what Weird Al Yankovic did to that song, it's still one of the greatest protest songs of all time, in my opinion. Stevie Wonder, obviously one of the greatest musicians of our lifetime, on maybe the best record of his career. I think it was his 17th record, and he was 26 years old. He actually talked about quitting the music business before he made it, and he was going to devote his life to doing aid work in Ghana, which he had traced his lineage back to. But Motown Records came back with the biggest record deal of all time at the time. And he went in the studio for 2 years to forge this fucking diamond. Out of 200 songs they worked on, the record came down to 21 tunes that made up this record called The Songs in the Key of Life. And both songs we played tonight so far have been from that record. Quick side note, I said there wasn't going to be any Backstreet Boys in this episode, which is true, but Stevie Wonder credited JSB, Johann Sebastian Bach, his Prelude No. 2 in C minor as the initial inspiration for that song, Pastime Paradise. So maybe worth checking out. That said, I was trying to come up with some classical era protest music, someone like Shostakovich or something like that, but I couldn't get it together, and instead I wanted to recommend two composers to look up. Now, black composers have been pretty clearly left out of the pantheon of great classical composers, so to honor some voices lesser heard, why not try Samuel Coleridge Taylor and Florence Price? Those are two I've been listening to in the last couple of weeks. Okay, here's another protest song. This is by The Clash.
When they kick at your front door, how you gonna come? With your hands on your head or the trigger of your gun? When the law breaks in, how you gonna go? Shot down on the pavement or waiting in death row. You can kick us, you can bruise us, but you have to answer too. Oh, the guns of Brixton. Oh, the guns of Brixton. Well, the money, it feels good. In your life you like it well, but surely your time will come, as in heaven or as in hell. You see, feels like Ivan, born under the Brixton sun. His game is called surviving. At the end of the harder they come. You know it means no mercy. They caught him with a gun. No need for Black Maria. Goodbye to the Brixton sun. Well, you can crush us, you can bruise us, but you have to answer too. Oh, the guns of Brixton. The guns of Brixton. us, you can bruise us, but you have to answer to.
Okay, welcome back. That song is by The Clash. It's called The Guns of Brixton. It was not written by Joe Strummer, actually written by Paul Simonon. The bass player wrote it. It was written before the Brixton riots in London, which happened in 1981. But obviously the situation was pretty clear long before the riots happened. I thought this song was interesting because it takes place in another country, dealing with the exact same issues that we're dealing with here. The song talks about the largely Jamaican community in Brixton, in London, reaching an inflection point in 1981 when rioting broke out as a result of police brutality. Afterwards, the British government commissioned a public inquiry on the riots, and it was carried out by a guy named Lord Scarman. Scarman? I don't know. And in it, this English lord found unquestionable evidence of the disproportionate and indiscriminate use of power by the police against black people. In the song, The Guns of Brixton, there's plenty of violence, which I'm sure turns some people off, much like the riots and looting that followed some of the protests we've seen in the last couple of weeks. But in the words of English Lord Scarman back in 1981, complex political, social, and economic factors created a disposition towards violent protest. And in his report, he said racial discrimination needed a swift remedy from a systemic standpoint. Unfortunately, Marge Thatcher rejected increased investment in these inner city communities. She said money can't buy racial harmony. Quickly, to bring it back to now, in the city where I live, Los Angeles, the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as many other activists, are calling for a reallocation of city funds towards community development and away from traditional law enforcement. Now, back to 1981, Brixton, London, the recommendations of the Scarman report weren't implemented by the British government. He said that was potentially due to the sense of urgency dissipating after the riots. And guess what? There were riots again in Brixton 4 years later, 1985 and 1995 too. Now, the German philosopher Hegel said, what we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. But I'm sure he would love to be proven wrong. So it's a long haul, people, and we got to keep on hauling. I got one more song I want to sing. This is one I wrote this week, and it's for Breonna Taylor, who was killed in Louisville, Kentucky in March by law enforcement. If you haven't donated, please consider it again, whether it's through me or on your own. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any thoughts you want to share. I love you all, and I hope I see you sooner than I think. Next time. Until then, here's a song for Breonna Taylor.
Oh, 313 2020. Louisville, Kentucky, where the river runs through the town with its Galt House front lit, KFC bullshit. Right there in the midst, there's a murder happening now. It's just after midnight. Breonna Taylor says goodnight, and she and Kenneth Walker lie in bed as lovers do. Then the door busts in, the shots ring out. There's panic and confusion as these strange men enter the house, and Kenneth screaming, somebody knocked down the door, somebody shot my girl, somebody called the cops, not knowing they were already there. And these police had a warrant, it's called a no-knock warrant, where they could enter without identifying themselves. And Kenneth Walker had a firearm, which he was licensed for. It was when he defended the house Breonna was shot down 8 times. That's Breonna Taylor, the city failed her. She was 26 years old. A first responder, she loved her mother. Now she's a martyr, and she'll never get to know what became of her life and her love, and what justice bears down, and what healing comes now, as long as we don't get lost in what power is granted us, in having a voice and the force of breath to speak.